Have you ever heard of Echo and Eco, the men from Mars? For decades, they were circus legends, billed as strange beings from another planet, captivating audiences across America. But the truth behind these ambassadors from Mars is far more tragic and shocking than any circus tale. Their real names were George and Willie Muse, and they weren't from Mars. They were from a small town in Virginia, and their story is one of abduction, exploitation, and a lifelong fight for freedom. Let's go back to 1899, in a small, segregated town called Truvine, Virginia. George and Willie were two young African-American brothers, just 6 and 9 years old. They were both albino, a rare genetic condition that left them with pale skin, light hair, and poor eyesight. In their community, they were different, but they were home. They lived a simple life on a tobacco farm with their parents. But that life was shattered one day when a circus promoter named James "Candy" Shelton rolled into town. He saw the boys working in the fields and saw an opportunity. Not an opportunity to help, but to exploit. He lured them away with the promise of candy. It was that simple, that cruel. The boys, young and innocent, went with him, thinking it was a game. They never saw their parents again for nearly 3 decades. Shelton had effectively kidnapped them. Once in his grasp, Shelton and other showmen began crafting a new identity for the Muse brothers. Their albinism became the centerpiece of a cruel spectacle. First, they were presented as Ecuadorian cannibals. Then, as sheep-headed men, forced to wear their hair in long dreadlocks. Finally, they were given their most famous identity, Echo and Eco, the ambassadors from Mars. They were dressed in strange outfits and told to speak in a made-up language. The story was that they were discovered in the Mojave Desert after their spaceship crashed. Audiences were mesmerized. They paid money to gawk at these supposed aliens. The brothers toured with some of the biggest circuses in the world, including Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. They performed for royalty in England and became headliners at Madison Square Garden. The circus made a fortune off them, but George and Willie saw almost none of it. They were essentially enslaved, with their earnings stolen by a series of managers who controlled their every move. While the brothers were being paraded around the country, their mother, Harriet Muse, never gave up hope. For 28 years, she searched for her boys. She was a poor, illiterate black woman in the Jim Crow South, fighting against a powerful and corrupt system. She followed every rumor, every whisper of 2 albino boys in a traveling show. The circus, knowing the brothers were their star attraction, did everything they could to hide them, constantly changing their names and moving them from show to show. But Harriet was relentless. In 1927, her search finally paid off. The Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, the greatest show on earth, came to Roanoke, Virginia, just a stone's throw from where the boys were taken. Harriet, now an older woman, went to the circus. She fought her way through the crowds and past security. When she saw her sons on stage, she reportedly screamed, "There are my boys. These are my children." At first, George and Willie didn't recognize her. It had been nearly 30 years. But as she spoke of their childhood, of their home in Truvine, the memories came flooding back. The reunion was emotional, a moment of pure, raw humanity in the middle of a fabricated spectacle. The crowd, which had come to see aliens, witnessed something far more incredible, a mother finding her long-lost sons. This reunion was not the end of their story. It was the beginning of a new fight. With their mother's help, the Muse brothers sued the circus. They demanded their freedom and the back wages they were owed for decades of forced labor. It was a landmark case. 2 black men, former sideshow acts, taking on one of the most powerful corporations in America. And unbelievably, they won. The court victory was a monumental moment, but the story takes another strange turn. After winning their freedom and a settlement, what did George and Willie do? They chose to return to the circus. But this time, it was on their own terms. They went back as paid performers, headliners who were finally in control of their own lives and careers. They had a contract, they were paid well, and most importantly, they could come and go as they pleased. Why would they return to the very world that had enslaved them? For the brothers, the circus was the only life they knew. The outside world was just as, if not more, cruel to people who looked like them. In the circus, they were stars. They had a community, a strange kind of family. They continued to perform as Echo and Eco, but now they were in on the act. They learned to play instruments, like the mandolin and saxophone, and became skilled musicians. They traveled the world, not as captives, but as professional entertainers. Their mother, Harriet, often traveled with them. She made sure they were never taken advantage of again. She became their protector, ensuring her boys were safe and their money was their own. After decades of pain, the family was finally together, carving out a life in the most unusual of circumstances. George and Willie Muse eventually retired from the circus in the 1960s and returned to Roanoke, where they lived out the rest of their days together. They were local celebrities, known for their kindness and their incredible life story. Willie passed away in 1971, and George lived a long life, passing away in 2001 at the age of 108. Their story is a powerful reminder of a dark chapter in American entertainment history. The world of sideshows was built on the exploitation of people who were different. But the Muse brothers' story is also one of incredible resilience. They were victims, yes, but they were also survivors. They endured the unimaginable, fought for their freedom, and then took control of their own narrative. The tale of Echo and Eco, the men from Mars, is a fiction created to make money. But the story of George and Willie Muse, the two boys from Truvine, Virginia, is a true testament to the strength of the human spirit and the unbreakable bond of family. It's a story that deserves to be remembered, not as a sideshow act, but as a profound piece of American history. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten history. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.